Can you hear us?
I can hear both of you.
Wanted to cancel. How about now? Are we back? Because this was horrible. I can hear me. Yep.
Hello, hello.
No.
Yeah, I'm hearing it double, I think. Yeah.
So we're good now?
Yeah, I got it now. Okay, so
Okay. Yeah, sorry about that, y'all. I got super excited about the whole everything that we've been doing on the inside and completely threw off the production value. Great. Makes me feel great. But we got
that intro
merch.
looked cool, man.
That intro looked,
Get it, get it.
yeah,
Yep.
another 16, 17 episodes, we'll get everything right and uh, get this running. Hold on.
Other two are too low.
How about
I think
now?
he's talking about Danny and I.
Yeah.
Hello?
How about now? Crank you guys up a little bit
Okay. Yep.
more.
There we go. See if that works for you.
So I gotta figure out how to turn you guys down in my ears.
Can't hear Rant.
Uh,
Okay.
Alright, let's see what's going on here. It's launching you guys, stating that you guys are up, but let's see what's happening. Try it through this one. Danny, say something.
Bonjour.
Still quiet, I have a feeling.
See if I turn my input up a bit, if that helps.
My input is maxed on the voice settings, so
Alright, what we're gonna do then is we're gonna crank up the volume, and I'm gonna blow my eardrums out, is what's gonna happen.
Do you really need them, though?
Apparently not. Alright, let's see. How about now? Are we looking better? Are we sounding good?
chirp, 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 chirp.
Oh boy, I can hear you through my
Boop,
phone. Dang.
boop-de-doop.
Nothing still? Maybe. Maybe not.
Um,
We're gonna have this figured out before the one shot for sure, but we've got a lot of work to do for the one shot, so it'll be smooth. Still, unless he didn't say anything else. Crap, guys, I don't know how to get this higher. You guys are cranked all the way up on my mixer. I've got you up to like double on my Discord.
I'm like almost eating my mic now.
Like, oh my god, my brain is hurting.
You sound the same to me, Danny. Because I got. Yeah, I'm listening to echoes now, so let me mute my tab. Yeah, I think we're good.
All right, let's see.
So what I heard from Danny on stream and what I heard from Danny via Discord was the same volume.
All right,
Same with
cool.
myself.
Awesome. So yeah, so what we're doing here tonight and for the next couple weeks is we're gonna these crazy characters that were created last week on a whim. Thanks to all of our followers and our new subscribers, we put out a challenge to have 5 subscribers that night, and we got it. So, and not to mention, we had 10 or so extra random subscribers on Sunday. So I don't know what's happening, but y'all are liking what we're doing, so we're just gonna keep doing it and making it work. So the next couple weeks, we're gonna deep dive into each one of their classes, their characters, ask them some pointed questions, and really find out who these characters are. And Corey and I are just gonna really pound Danny with a bunch of questions to flesh out that character more and more. And then we're gonna use all that information that we get from him to build and weave the story together for our one shot. So, Danny, I hope you're ready.
Yeah.
I got some stuff. I even have an idea to even bounce off. Like maybe I should even race change based on like what I even built into the backstory
There you
a
go.
little bit. Because for me, that's what character creation is. It's like nothing is set in stone until like the very end. Because maybe that one thing that you grasped at the beginning, something else suits it better towards the end to connect everything. It's like a
Agreed.
point.
Yeah, I think the biggest
So
thing
you're
is
saying
as
no,
long.
no elf? Is that what you're thinking?
No, but instead of like a wood elf, an eladrin, like the elf specifically
Oh,
from the Feywild.
Oh, okay.
Because as I was
yeah.
building, like, okay, what's his background, and I'm other questions like other people involved in his past, like it would make more sense if he was an eladrin. So not getting stuck on like that min-maxing aspect of like, well, a wood elf in a jungle would let me hide. It's like that's a 2% portion of it, but it gives more play variety when your character's existence makes more sense in the story that
Right.
your character's partaking in.
No, I agree, and that's a really cool thought process that you went through, rather than to just make sure you get the like the actual max amount of points you can get out of it, taking that core concept that you created with your character and then running with that. And I think that's why it was really cool to throw that as your first question every time we spoke to the players last week, is that by asking you your core, you then had to focus directly on that point before you dove into anything else.
Yeah, so it's more like, especially for players, if the stats are that important to you, you can always like ask the GM, like, can we do the cautious thing or Tasha's cauldron? Kind of fused it together, and allocating your ability points, so you don't have to worry about like, oh, I want to play a Goliath wizard, but that's like strength and constitution. I don't get anything. So you kind of shy away from it because you get these benefits in something that's not going to really help you as much. So if you are worried about that, you can always bring it up to your GM, like, yo, can we do the Tasha's thing? And I reallocate those points to where my character would benefit from. That way the story makes more sense. Like that's always a thing. So it'd be like, for this one shot, would we be able to like allocate 1 point? Is it gonna make or break it? Like it's still gonna get the 2 to dexterity, but between Eladrin and Wood Elf, it's either 1 to wisdom or 1 to intelligence. Not a make or break thing. It's
Right.
more like a sprinkle on top of the sundae. It would be nice, but not important.
Yeah, no, I agree. The other thing cool about the Eladrin, like you said, is you based it on your backstory. So the Wood Elf, yes, makes sense. However, it makes a lot more sense to play something that's from the Feywild and has been from the Feywild. And since you're being stolen from it, it makes it a lot um,
True to
more intricate.
character.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like one of the things I didn't like go into vast detail, but I kind of asked like, okay, why was an Eladrin taken? Why is an Eladrin like being stolen? So I kind of dove that route of like, okay, maybe they're stealing planar touched beings. So some of the other NPCs in the background, like I could be also trying to find them, like friends that I had that were also captured. So what if they were all different plane touched beings that you wouldn't think? Kind of like if an adventurer comes into a party at level 5, it's like who was their adventuring party before, kind of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Not saying that
Right.
this was his party, but like he was stolen. Okay, who are the other people that were also stolen? Where are they from? And so like as I built that and as I built like the design of like what his armor would look like, what he would look like, it just made more sense for that shift to it's nice for Wood Elf, but the Eladrin would be more true. And you know what? Like that Misty step that the Eladrin gets
Yeah.
can contribute to that. Like that was one of the things that was used to help the original group of slaves escape from their captors. Like that was a part of their plan, and each one had different abilities.
Yeah, no, I like that.
So So when you said why were you captured? Is that something that you, I mean, because this is a one shot, the character creation you can basically create whatever you want, right? Because it's not like there's going to be this campaign where you might step on the DM's toes and say, "Oh, well, they were thinking we would go this way with the story." So, what do you think? What is that? Why? Well, what were they doing with all of these planar beings?
Yeah, I think what it is it's more like what's a hot commodity? A regular slave or an Eladrin? Like
Right.
an elf that's from the Feywild. It's more prized. Like some of the other ones I wrote out was like an Asimar, a Tiefling, a Kalashtar, like not just humanoid races, but people who have like that planar magic that someone can buy as a slave as a trophy, use as a slave to break down for components if you want to go that dark ritual aspect. I even have like an Incubus as someone who is like more demonic, and it's that the slavers are just collecting like not elite in the sense of like skill, but elite in like rarity. It's like you don't always see these races around. So very high status people would want to have slaves that other nobilities wouldn't have. They would fetch a higher price. And it kind of brought together like the Kalashtar has like these ability of telepathy, so it's kind of
Mm-hmm.
how they were able to plan their escape. The Tieflings have like some touch of that infernal magic that can be used to kind of escape with like Hellish Rebuke as a reaction, is like fusing that game mechanics with the story. Uh, the ASMR can let the person who's guarding them with their guard down because of their charisma and like their beauty, and like the Incubus is like Incubus, succubi, male, female, can be used as like to charm the people around them to kind of get them through the danger fields until they get to safety. So it's kind of like we're prized possessions because we have these skills, but when we use them together, we were able to escape. Kind of a concept. And so even though it's not something that's going to be fleshed out over 6 to 8 months, it's like, okay, why would my character be joining this group for the one shot? And it's like, well, this blade can get the portal back to the Feywild. It's a way for me to get home.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I wouldn't
Yep.
stay with my original people, because we're all just trying to get back to our original locations. So we split ways, and that's why my guy would be joining this group.
Nice.
Okay. So, did everybody make it?
Um, I'm gonna say that there may have been other people involved, because like you're all level 1, slavers are not level 1. So, um, I'm gonna say like these are like the 4 I wrote down are the 4 that escaped with me, and there may
Mhm.
have been others that may not have escaped. But it could always be like if this was something extended, is maybe one of them got recaptured, maybe one of them was killed by something in the process. Maybe one of them turned evil, and now I have to go deal with like that. Your your friend who you escaped with is now an enemy, kind of a
Right.
thing. Because you don't normally see an ASMR, a Tiefling, an Eladrin, an Incubus, and a Kalashtar like you're 5 best friends. It's like you're all from different realms, and a lot of you don't like each other instinctually.
Right.
So for survival to escape, you aligned, but what happens after? And all your goals are just to get back home, and either Infernal Plane, Shadowfell, Celestial Plane, where Feywild, or even stay on the Material Plane. Where does that alliance like, okay, the enemy of my enemy is my friend, when that common enemy is now gone, when do the alliances break down? And I know that's like really intricate for a one shot, because one shot is like, I want this, and I want to go boom. But like for the purposes of this, I was like, you know what, let me dive a little bit more into it in case people were like really wondering. And it's like, because I know a lot of people, especially people I've played with in different campaigns, they're like, I don't know how to get a really good backstory day one.
Right.
And I tell people, start with a skeleton. Like, just start with like names. You don't even need a big thing. You don't need to know your entire family's background,
Mm-mm.
what's led up to this. Like, when in doubt, you can even play an amnesiac. You're a level
Right.
one because you have no idea how you ended up here. Like, that's literally one of the biggest tropes in anime categories are the isekais. Like, I got reincarnated and now I am XYZ person in XYZ world. And I have memories or I don't, or now I'm evil or I'm a slime. There's one now where like I think someone's a spider and she's trying to survive as a spider.
Yeah. First off,
So it's
that would not be me. I wouldn't want to survive as a spider. I just want to be dead. Like, I'm not a big spider fan.
but it's that concept of like you don't need like this like grandiose backstory. Like some people really enjoy making them and they're awesome for super long campaigns.
Right.
They're they're more for like for you to enjoy, like to
Mm-hmm.
help you figure out like why your character does it. Like, would I use command as a paladin? And it's like, you know what? I don't think my guy would ever prepare that spell because he knows what it's like to have his freedom taken away. He knows what
Ooh,
it's like to not
I
have
like that.
choice.
Yeah.
So like command is a super useful spell. But like, you know what? Like I'm not going to take command or like suggestion. Like I'll leave that to like other people because like he's all about like getting home and that freedom and like I was taken and I've attuned to nature and become a paladin to uphold those oaths. Like that's one of the things I think is great for starting players if you don't know how to play classes. Um, Paladin oaths literally tell you what your character acts like.
Or gives you at
Right.
least a framework for your character
It
in
gives
a
you that
way.
guidance. It's like, what do you do? Because it's one of those great things is of like your character stands for A, B, and C. Your character fights against X, Y, Z. So it's
Right.
like, shit, what would I do? It's like, okay, well, this falls under X, Y, Z, so like I would intervene or I would stop it. Or like this is A, B, or C, so like I would be okay with this. Like I would support them. I would protect what's
Mm-hmm.
going on. So it's a really good thing. Like I tell people, like one of the easiest things to use is just read the player's handbook regarding what you want to play because it gives you that basic information.
Yeah, I think
Like there's
that's a really a great way to do it, especially if, like you said, with new players, where instead of you just telling them, "Hey, go pick what you want," go read over those archetypes. If you want to be a rogue, what kind of rogue do you want to be? If you want to be a paladin, what kind of paladin do you want to be? And those at that level, when you get that point where you're starting to see your character develop mechanically differently, you can read over what that means to the character or look at it backwards and go, okay, what does this mean to my character? And this is what fits my character. Now these are what I'm going to receive from that once I start playing.
yeah, and like that's one of the things like I think one of the funniest tropes is like the horny bard.
Right.
Not every bard has to be that way. Like I've made a bard and like that's never been a part of his playstyle. Like his
Right.
whole playstyle is I'm just gonna talk my way
Out of everything.
in and out of any situation I want to.
You're like the New
But
Yorker that, like, on the
yeah,
street.
and, and like one of his like two of his like big things is one he doesn't trust people inherently. That's why he uses his words to manipulate those around him. And the other thing is he doesn't like talking to people. He avoids it.
Hmm.
So like that doesn't make sense for a bard. Like, you love putting on a show. It's like, no, I'm really good at it, but I like laying low and avoiding trouble.
Right.
I just use that part of who the character is to get into it. And that's kind of the same way I approach this and like how I would like choose what prepared spells, the few that I do get. Um, like I chose like ensnaring strike because paladins need at least one damage one, but I took speak with animals because he's in touch with nature. Like he's trying to survive. It's easier to ask like the deer like where's the water than like find it on your own. And cure wounds because he's more about protecting life than destroying it and stuff like that.
Right.
Versus like Oathbreaker Paladin, which is like the Edge Lord Paladin, or
Right.
Oath
Yeah.
of Conquest. So it's like you can use these like basics, like facts that you get when you build your character to kind of like, okay, like what spells would I take? What weapon styles fit? Am I more magic based, more melee based? And it kind of gives you that push with along what you want to play.
Agreed.
So one of the as we were chatting before this, one of the questions that we kind of preloaded for you was about the oath. Like, describe what brought you to the point where you basically gave yourself over to some higher power. What was it that? Was there a moment? Was there a mentor? What was it that changed your character's life to be that much of a like a zealot, basically?
So I think one of the things for this character, because I made him so nature themed, and a lot of people attribute like the real world to how they apply to like in game. Like people are like, well, this chemical and this chemical means an explosion. It's like, yeah, but you don't have uranium in the material plane. Like, let's not try and make a bomb. So I would assume that like this after the breakout, like you don't have resources, you don't have allocations, but maybe he walked into like a mystical forest or jungle that wasn't inherently hostile, it was neutral. And when it found that it my character wasn't a threat, showed him how to survive. Like I took the route of instead of like my deity being like the wild mother or a god of nature, like what if I was like the Mowgli character, like raised by the jungle.
Mm-hmm.
So I took my oath to protect what helped keep me alive and stuff like that. So it's more of the a lot of survivors don't survive living in a jungle or a forest from just not basic survival instincts. But maybe that misty stealth helped me stay away from predators, helped me get to certain safe locations. And maybe there was some magic in the jungle that embraced me, and so I felt a connection that was taken from me when I was removed from my home. And this nature spirit or presence is what has motivated my character to take up this oath of like, it's kind of like your parents take care of you when you're a kid, so when you get older, you help take care of your parents. So it's kind of like that aspect. And I think this is maybe, and I say this happens with a lot of people, that they take like their personal perspectives of things and apply them. Like it's very Hispanic to keep the family unit together, that multi-generational homes. So it might be that aspect of like if nature took care of me, my responsibility is to take care of nature at the same time. Because that's just how I would perceive like these oaths.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the servitude, it's more of the gratitude kind of a thing. And that connection. Um, because none of these oaths are really about harm. These oaths are really more about control and survival, which is, um, and not control as in free will, but like control as in like keeping control of your environment so you can protect yourself. If you have to turn, you're not taking someone's free will, you're forcing them to go away from you, and you can use that option to escape, which is what he's done. So like that kind of thing with like the Oath of Ancients is what I found really interesting, because Paladin, lots of metal, forest themed. It's like Paladin, lots of damage, lots of smiting,
Mm-hmm.
but you have access to all this healing magic. But like, what if you get access to some of that nature magic
Right.
and take that route? And it
Right.
was an interesting dual perspective, which I told you guys I love doing, where you either do weird combos or hyper extremes. So it's like
Right.
I carry a shield and sword, so I protect, but I kill. But nature does that as well.
Right. So
So
you have a
it's
respect for nature in how it works. So you base your character off of those same concepts.
Yeah, and in that kind of is like what leads me to how I build their personality and how they respond to stuff.
Yeah. So I don't know. There was a lot talked about, but was there really a point or a section of your life that would have stated that I want to direct myself to protecting nature?
I would say like after surviving in this enchanted forest or jungle for XYZ amount of time and getting a feeling that because I never posed a danger to it as a living organism
Mm-hmm.
almost, and it took care of me and I have that realization, I take the mentality of like, although this is not a person, it has a consciousness and it has chosen to protect me. So I am going to choose to do the same for it.
So very symbiotic,
Exactly.
yeah,
Right.
relationship.
And perhaps there were some, like, you're all alone in the jungle, and there were some signs, things you noticed, and in a way it began to talk to you, right? Not talk as in, hey, go do this, but you started to be able to read those signs of nature and read those things. To
Vines moving in a certain
Yeah,
way, tree branches bending when I needed them to, so it was easier to climb. It was kind of like, okay, this wasn't a path, but the plants have moved in a way that it's showing me walk this way.
Right. Or you're standing there and you're like, God, I'm starving, and like a random fruit just drops from the sky. Like you're like, okay,
Exactly. Or like you hear like like a bird chirping, and so you
yeah,
head to look, and that's a fruit tree,
right. Or
and it just
water or
happens to,
something, and it was very just
it,
happenstance on. Those
and
will
it
be
just kept happening.
fun. So I'm gonna take the step back to the game master side of this now. So this is awesome stuff to play with as a game master because you can use these little different quirks in your games at all times. So every once in a while, even if nothing else is going on, you can state that a branch kind of grows a separate direction. Or this is, for some reason, you start walking forward and you get the sense, or, a vine wraps around your foot, and after you look, you see a trap is in front of you. Something that you can trigger that nature is watching you at all times. Apologize for
Exactly.
the typing.
it,
Or my favorite, like when your party is completely stuck and has no idea what to do,
Yeah.
it's like as a GM, and it's what I've seen from a lot of GMs, it can be like, you know what, give me a nature check. And if I roll high enough, that commune with nature and that it's like you feel the branches in a certain direction are clearing a way for you, indicating that maybe that should be a way to go. Or if it's low enough, it's like you don't open a door, but if there's four, it's like you don't roll high enough that it tells you which way, but you get a sense to not head south.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of see, so you give the party like additional ways of doing fake perception checks or insight checks and what they need to do based on that. Almost like that, like if a divination wizard fails like an insight check, it's like, but he's drinking tea. It's like read the tea leaves. If you're a diviner,
Yeah.
you can use other divining
Yep.
tools. Pull out the tuning fork, see if you can find water. And it's one of
yeah.
those like pull that in.
What I like about this idea is that it really does allow for, and this is the hardest part about playing a paladin, is what do other people in the party think of your beliefs, right? And I like this idea because other people in the party might be like, yeah, everything you're talking about is just coincidence. Like, you say that the forest is talking to you, you heard a bird and got some fruit. Yeah, well, birds eat fruit too. It's a coincidence, man. It's not divine intervention. The bird had to eat. You heard the bird. You followed it to the tree where it was eating. That's not divine intervention. And there can be this banter about beliefs, and I really like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it could also go that route of like, and I think this is where I pull like my real life career, um, because I work in mental health, and I have a lot of patients who are religious, and I think that's fantastic. And they bring up, it's like, you're one of the only providers that told me like it's not a bad thing. I go, it's not a bad thing to pray. It's not a bad thing that you talk to your higher power. I get a concern when you tell me your higher power talks back in words. So it's kind of like that concept of like, okay, you're a cleric and your deity is Sarenrae. It's like, what is the difference between a magical entity from a different plane giving you, like, if what I am saying doesn't make sense, how am I able to cure wounds?
Mm-hmm.
How was I able to survive as a child or teenager to adulthood alone in a forest with no training? It can't, it can be coincidence X numbers of times, but there's a reason
Right.
a cleric has faith that their god will provide for them and
Right.
take care of them.
Especially in these, and like I said, especially when you're doing it in a fantasy setting like D&D, where you know there are dedicated points in time and place where this happens, where gods have intervened, and it's known throughout the entirety of the realm.
Yeah, like gods are a fact. Like they are a thing.
Yeah.
Like I can shoot lightning because a god said here. And it's one of those of like, what if your power doesn't come from the god? What if it comes from like a patron? Patrons don't have to be gods. So what if my power just comes from nature itself choosing to grant it to me? So it's like being that child of nature, attuned to it and using it. And it's more like, I don't question when you talk to whatever demon gave you your Eldritch Blast. But if anything, like, mine is what we deal with every day. Mine is neutral. It has no evil or good. It just is.
I think it's
yours can make choices to do evil or good, and has and justified it in its own means.
I think it's interesting too, because back in third edition in the older versions, paladins were known to have a deity that they worshiped. They were the avatar for, and they were zealous for. This oath really changes that, and you don't need to have a divine connection. It could be anything, really, as you were saying. I mean, this could be the Paladin of Vengeance could surprisingly be getting most of his power from a demon or a devil, or, a patron that you normally would see coming from a warlock, but he can still get those same energies, and vice versa. So this is more based on just nature itself giving you this protection and this gift. And I really like the difference that they shifted from just having it being deities.
Like, one of my favorite things to piss off warlocks and clerics is say, you're basically the same thing. You've made a deal with a higher power for your power. And they say no, and I go, okay, let's make it even better. You have a cleric whose god is an evil-aligned god, and you have a celestial patron warlock who heals. The class itself is still, you've made a deal or a devotion to a higher being. It's just how much of yourself do you give?
Right.
Clerics, you give your entire existence to them. Warlocks make a deal. It's like, I give you X, you give me Y.
Right.
But the rest of it, it's mine. So it's that concept of like, what if I didn't take that route? What if, like, I don't have a deity because it wasn't a deal? It was more about, like, you took care of me because you saw me as, like, an innocent life. Like, the way animals will adopt other animals as their own, even though they're completely separate species.
Right. No, I completely
agree. So, like, there are
agree.
examples of that all the time.
So
I'm gonna.
Also,
I was just gonna.
Before we do that, what I was going to state is remember that we do have, you guys can't ask questions, so I do believe I need to turn on the different polls. So I'm going to go do that.
Oh yeah, we got luck from Wednesday.
Yeah, we don't need luck. I mean, we might need luck.
I mean, luck Sunday, not Wednesday. Today's Wednesday.
Yeah, today's Wednesday.
So kind of stepping back into the realm of divine intervention in games, right? I like to think that when a cleric gets their spells in the morning and they do their prayer or they, however that works. Everybody seems to think along that, one deity lens, right? I am a cleric of this one deity, and that one deity is giving me all of my power to influence the world. Uh, And yet, we always play in these worlds with all these deities. I think it's kind of interesting if you're like praying, if you're, praying to get your spells and you're choosing these different rituals to try and get something that hurts people, right? But you follow a god of good. Maybe it's not that god of good that you primarily worship that gave you that power. Maybe it's one of the other deities watching over the world that said, "Oh yeah, I'm going to let you do that."
Or even a more twisted perspective is like they're good because someone decided what they were was good.
Mm-hmm.
My best example is the Crusades, Holy Wars. Innocent people were killed, but you were told it was the right thing to do. You were given weapons. You were promised eternal life after if you were to die in combat. Same thing with the Vikings in Valhalla. It was honorable to die in battle because that's how you get glory. So it's one of those where I can play that like that neutral nature character in that like you tell me you are a follower of a god of love. Why do you use the curse blight? Why do you hurt? Or like you are a god of evil. Why have you taken like a grave domain cleric who follows an evil god and takes cure wounds and bless?
Right. What's the point behind it? What is your meaning behind it?
It's like, is your god actually evil? Or were they just labeled as such because the other gods had better followers and that's how they've written the story?
Right.
So, so just kind of framing some of this, you basically grew up alone in the jungle, right? So like you said, Mowgli, Tarzan type. Were there people other than the ones you escaped with when you were really young? Were there people who influenced who your paladin, who Emery was?
Yeah, I think I'd say that along the way, through traveling, I've met people in the jungle. Otherwise, like, how did I get armor and stuff? Like, I
Right.
found my ways in and out of towns. A tree did not teach me how to wield a sword. So I would say like there are people who I've interacted with, but my home would be the forest or like a small home I've built outside.
Mm.
Um, and I would say that like I don't know if he's had specific mentors and things. Like maybe he's learned from people he's met because his goal was always to get home. It was never to be stationary. And that's why his oath travels with him. Like no matter where he goes in this air in this version of the material plane, there is grass, there are trees, there are forests, there are bushes, there is some semblance of nature. Like along the coast, you still got palm trees and coconuts. So it's kind of like that concept of like I think the most influential people are the slavers and the people he escaped with.
Mm.
And maybe they've been some like people that he's met along the way that saw a kid. It's like, dude, you're living in a forest by yourself. Like, here's a sword from a bandit that tried to kill us. You should at least take this if you're not going to come with us.
People that might have taken pity on you, or given you some sort of sympathy on your trip,
Or people I helped.
or people you've helped.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like, I know these forests. I know how to get you out. If you're exhausted, you have no food, you have no water.
Yeah. And you pop out of
I'm your
nowhere, and you're like, "Oh, hey, I can get you out of here."
It's like, who are you and why do you look so healthy in the middle of this jungle?
I don't know. The bird told me to come get you. Like,
I was like, I don't know. Well, I'm eating an apple. It's like, the trees told me to head this way because somebody was in a pinch. It's like, no, we're fine. It's like, you kind of look like you're dying. Like, do you need food? Okay. 300 feet that way, there's a bush of berries.
Don't eat the green
100
ones.
feet that way, there's some rabbits. There's a rabbit hut if you want some meat, and there's w- fresh water 500 paces that way with your water skins. And then as gratitude, toss me some coin or gave me some of their bounty from like when they killed the bandits. And it's more
Yeah.
of that like my character was the NPC in that adventuring party thing, kind of. And now like because that's not a regular character. That's an NPC kind of style that your
Yeah.
character just pops up. Like that mischievous little like jungle child.
Yeah.
And like what if that was the character? Like how did he become that? Because it never gets flushed out. Um instead of just taking that whole road of like I don't think he has those strong ties. I wrote down something that I thought would be like a cool like magic item that has nothing to do with the game. It's like what if each of the five people escaped with a magical ring from the slavers that were originally used to track their slaves, but they're the only ones with the rings now, so it's an easy way for them to track each other if they need to. Like it's, and I even wrote down like old school Dragon Ball Z tracking. Like it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
give you the precise location, but you know, like if I head west, the red ring is there. If I head east, the white ring is there.
Right.
And like that would be a cool way. It's like those are the closest things I have to family. So
Yeah.
I don't want to completely cut myself off. So we can go that route of like the black ring is not active.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if this was a long arc, it's like maybe I go try and figure out what happened. Like, did
Right.
they take the ring off? Are they dead? Have they turned?
Yeah.
XYZ.
Did they just go too far? You know, like because you don't know what the
Yeah. Or
distance. Like, it's
did you
oh,
make
you
it
know,
home, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
or
yeah,
did they make it home? Because it can be like it's like a baby scrying spell kind of. It's like,
yeah.
but it only works on your plane. So it's like once the ring goes inactive, it's
It's an
either they made it home or they're just not going to make it home anymore. And it's a way of like, okay, well, their journey has come to an end.
right. I like those. Those are really good plot hooks, and they're really good ways to make your game master have a lot of stuff to work with. One of the things I love doing is I love giving my players like key character points that I want them to figure out as characters. Which a lot of it we fleshed out your background and then some hidden things, some things that only you or a few people would know. And then, of course, there's your secrets. Those are the things that you keep personally to yourself, and we won't even share those on stream because those are fun to fall out on in the as we fall through the one shot. But secrets are something I really want you to think about, Danny. Is like what are the one or two things that you would keep with your absolute life, things that would either get you killed or keep.
Like, what would you die for?
Yeah, what would you die for? Like, what are the two or three things, and then send those to me and Corey, and then we're going to use those as part of the plot to thicken things. Um, and I think we really know your goal. Like that's the one thing I like about your core is so simple to the goal. Your goal is to get home, and it makes sense.
And I think that's where people get stuck on their character creation. It's like sometimes your goal is
Simple.
just to make money.
Yeah.
Sometimes your goal is just like that's perfectly fine. Like
Right.
that's everyone's goal in real life.
Yeah.
Make money, get home and get fed.
Yeah.
And like that those basic instincts are a perfectly fine driving cause. You don't need uh to be like that super and nothing wrong with it like must get vengeance upon everyone kind of character or like
Right.
I need to hide because I'm chased for XYZ reasons. It's like or maybe my goal is really simple. This sword is a way to get to the Feywild and that means I've made it home at least. And maybe I figure out okay, now I'm in the Feywild. Can I find my family? Are they still alive? And that would be like a separate adventure kind of a concept where I think it's one of those like and I tell people like don't worry about what you're doing 10 years from now. Just get through the month. And I think that's one of the main things with this character is that like because it's survival based, it's nature based, it's like going day to day, His long-term goal is like just get home. It's not like retirement, have a family. It's like survive, get to the Feywild. I'll figure it out once I'm there, kind of thing.
Yeah, no,
And it's
that's a lot.
simple.
I think those are definitely some things that people need to, especially on one shots, things like that. Like you still want to give your game master something to sink his teeth in, something that he can really make the game feel connected to you. And a lot of times, one shots are really hard to do with that because you're grabbing them from a module, or you're grabbing this one concept and you're running with it, and you've only got a couple hours to share this information. But when you've got these little quick things you can pinpoint into your characters, I think that's really fun.
Yeah, it's like I have some like this is something that you can do or not, and I'll send it to you as like not as a secret, but as a plot hook. Like this is something you could throw in that would
Mm-hmm.
give my character like you have a choice to make,
Right.
and it's like shit.
Yeah. So I saw
Where it's
saw this really interesting, and it's definitely stealing because it's from another game master, but Abria from the new Critical Role group. She does that a lot with the patrons that she has floating around in her world. They're
oh, I
always
thought it was so
asking.
great.
Oh, it is. They're always asking, "Hey, how much do you want this? What are you willing to give? What is your?" And I think those are really fun things to do because you can ask people very quickly, and you can see their true motives very fast. If you're like, "Hey, so you seem exhausted. Your friend's
And
dying. What will you do for me?" Like,
it's like, what would you give? And
yeah,
like they like one deity asks a player, it's like, if it came down to X or Y, what are you willing to do? And there was another scene where, um, not to give anything away, but something that did kind of, make me look at nature a little differently was the Fierai monk character, the Fire Ganassi,
yeah,
the way her character interacted with nature. Now that was a deity
mm-hmm.
manipulating nature to talk to her. But it was that concept of like, what if like nature itself was the one talking to me?
Right,
Like, what if that vine grasped me to prevent me from falling onto a hunter's trap? And it's really that exploration of like, so this doesn't ruin anything, but Abria says in an interview, the whole concept is like power. Power in itself is neither good nor evil.
mm-hmm.
It just is.
Right.
And I kind of like that concept of like
Nature's
with
kind of
the
in the
oath,
same boat. It just is.
it's it is both horrifying and beautiful, destructive yet nurturing, which is one of the main concepts between like the wildfire druid. It's like you burn things to the ground, but that allows a new life to grow from it. It's one of the
Right.
farming techniques,
Yeah.
and it's that concept of like nature. I will like wolves kill, but wolves don't kill because they want to. Wolves kill to eat.
Right. They
So
have an order
Right.
that they have to
So
follow.
so let's go down that path a little bit. To tell me about a time when Emery chose nature over society. So maybe
Ooh.
when did you choose not just like running into nature and living there, but a point where you had to decide, well, that's a natural thing, and these people might be hurt or they might be killed or whatever, but you had to make a decision and chose nature over society.
like I think something that like my like Emery would not intervene with because he wouldn't see it as something to intervene with was if someone was hunting a bear and the bear was winning. Like that is nature. You targeted a predator and the predator is winning. You have chosen to willingly become food for it. Like I wouldn't intervene for a deer getting hunted by a wolf,
Right.
But if I see an injured deer and no wolf, I would help. So it's
Right.
that concept of like, I don't know if it would be more of a choosing nature over society, but more of that, what is nature's course?
Mm.
Because I have a respect for how nature goes.
Right.
Modern society is like interfering with the course of nature in advancement of itself. Whereas Emery would see is that you are never going to beat nature. The strongest buildings crumble with a seedling at its foundation that grows.
Mm-hmm.
So then I'll step it up a notch. That hunter who's hunting the bear is somebody you know and have met before.
My guy would take that neutral stance of like, why are you hunting the bear? If you're hunting it for sport or game, that's gonna stop.
So let's take
But if
this
you're
a
So you
little
would
deeper.
intervene.
to protect the bear,
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So here's
because
the
it's
fun
not
part.
following
So
the course.
ah!
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, this is something Corey and I really wanted to do, and this is the perfect time to do it. At this point, you're Emery. He's going to create a character name very fast, and you guys are going to interact as if it's a small vignette of your interaction. So,
Okay.
All right.
scene.
I'm scene. Uh, so
Where's the
so
thief?
I'm stalking a bear. You easily track me. You know me from before. I brought you food at one point when I hunted a deer. I'm a half elf uh, named Rens, and we've met 2 or 3 times before, and I've even brought you food, and I'm now on the trail of a bear. And you also know that there is that it's a mother bear with 2 cubs.
So
And here Ren's is I'm coming through the woods nearby you on the trail of this bear
I think
with my spear. I got a
I
spear.
I
Got a
think
spear.
instinctually, yeah, just a spear. My character, once I understood you're hunting this bear, would be sword sheathed but shield out and Misty step in front of Ren's. J- My friend, what are you doing? It seems that you are hunting a bear.
Yes, Emery, you came from nowhere.
I
Yes,
come from here.
I'm tracking a bear. I can get great money for the pelt, and bears have lots of meat.
Would you not do other things for coin? You've completed other missions. You've been able to slay beasts that were a danger to you and your friends. Why go after a bear with
Is it-
cubs?
oh, they have cubs. Oh well, I just saw large footprints. Um,
Yeah,
but as to why, Emery, I'm a hunter. This is what I do.
yes, you've hunted before for survival, for food. Every creature does that, not for sport. Wolves do not kill for enjoyment. Bears do not eat salmon for sheer boredom.
Yes,
You hunted deer for survival.
but then I trade the pelts and I trade my meat for things I cannot hunt, like breads and wines and meats, things that I myself can't make.
And there are no other means of getting coin. I do not. You look as though you've improved your armaments. I do not think a bear pelt gave you enough. Have you not received coin from defeating other evils?
Other evils. I mean, unless you call the pack of wolves that I scared away from the edge of town evils,
So you can make coin by just causing fear and not taking life. I understand defending yourself, but to just hunt a bear for coin, that is disrupting the balance. If you
So,
take the mother bear out, the cubs may not survive.
and then I could not hunt them later. That is a good point. Yes, yes, okay.
Or
Uh,
you disturb what they hunt, and then what they hunt tends to grow more, and then those smaller creatures go and destroy your crops, and then how will you make your breads if your crops are destroyed by smaller animals?
so I get the feeling you do not want me to hunt this mother bear. I
It's more that I'm not going to let you hunt this mother bear, and I'm taking this point to show you that you probably have other options.
I believe you're right, and I think I've come to an understanding more of you here, Emery, and perhaps if you come across some things that you would like to sell, pelts or things that you find in the natural order of things, please, bring them to my shack in town, and I would gladly buy them from you.
When I hunt for food, the parts I do not need, I will happily give to you.
Very well. Farewell, Emery, and he turns around and walks back towards town.
And then Emery starts using like not a full channel divinity because that's nature's wrath is like he's pulling out vines, but more of a weakened version where he uses vines and the branches to start sweeping up the bear's prints
Mhm.
to make sure that like later on the bear can't be tracked. And at least knowing the bear had an opportunity for at
Right.
least another day.
It's a great. That was like, so these things, like I said, this little vignette that we just did here is a great way to show people how interaction is going to work in the game. But also, it created a cool character now. So Ren's not only is going to be somebody that Emery has helped feed before, vice versa, but now has kind of this change in thought process, this change of mentality that he's not just going to go random hunt people just for or hunt bears and stuff like that for no reason, or it might not have, and then you're going to see it down the range where he tries something else. But
And it becomes that like I tried, I gave you conflict, or I gave you a chance to change. You chose not to heed it, and I
And
told
now,
you I would not let this happen.
and now you're getting eaten by a bear.
yeah,
Right.
No, because nature, because remember, as an oath of ancients, one of my spells is speak with animals.
yeah,
Mm.
So maybe my guy goes and talks to the mother bear and lets her know, like, be careful of where you tread, stay far
Mm.
from the town.
yeah.
The
You're being
others that
hunted.
look, the others that look like me but that cannot speak with you will hurt you and your cubs. Head north or head further into the forest.
Yeah,
Stay in your cave. Do not come out as much, at least for the time being. So it's taking that route of like maybe speak with animals is just something he does almost as a language.
yeah.
Like he uses
Almost
it to
innately.
communicate. Like he will hold some animals to the same level of hierarchy as humans, elves,
Hmm.
whatever. It's more like you are a life of equal standing.
Maybe take a pass on mauling Timmy. Yeah, like the young
It's
child,
more like,
the
but if
young
Timmy,
child in the room.
like, like maybe don't eat humans that come after you that are smaller than me,
Yeah,
unless they wield weapons. If you see someone that looks this shape without a weapon and small, leave them alone.
yeah,
They are probably someone's cub.
yeah. So those are interesting concepts, and I think it's really fun to have those interactions, not only with people but with animals, because you're talking to a very, at the point, should be a primitive creature, but as you give them the ability to speak, now you can give more intelligence to them, or you can not, which is even funner. Funner, horrible word. I hate that word, but I use it. Where you give them broken language because they don't have a high intelligence, and you allow them to request very simple means like food, water, survival, or well, home, kill, one word answers, but at the time it does give you that point of direction you can give as a creature.
Or if you want to make it funny, you can make it like legit Jungle Book, like
Yeah,
Baloo,
yeah.
Bagheera. They had
Uh-huh.
full sentences, full
Oh yeah,
conversations, and
break
then
out into dance, mind you.
it's even like can compose entire songs with
Yeah.
like melodies, but it's that concept of like what if my guy was that true like natural order of things? Like
Yeah.
just because you talk common doesn't mean your life is more valid than the bears. And it's like they're like poor Timmy, and I'm like, well, Timmy fell in a well, and now he's in a forest. Poor him.
At least it's not Chad. Yeah.
But yeah, I wanted to approach this differently because like what does it mean that your connection to the world isn't other people? It's the physicality of your location and the goal to get to another one.
Yeah.
And then once you're there and you've achieved that goal, maybe that's when you start looking more at like what does it mean to be an Eladrin?
So I have a question, something we haven't, and it goes way back into your backstory. When were you taken? Were you taken as a child? Were you taken as a young
Yeah,
adult?
I'm gonna say I was probably taken as a child because those are much easier to take if you see a child stray a little too far from
Mm-hmm.
their parents or like their town or
Don't
kids
take
who
the
are
fake handy.
curious
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
stay away from the white vans kind of a
Yeah.
thing. And it was one of those of like maybe the slavers have charming magic to lure children
Right.
away, kind of like that ice cream truck melody,
Yeah.
Candyman concept of
Yeah.
like,
Pied
um,
Piper type mentality.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like, what if? Go, go,
that was
go.
one of my questions. Is that if having this ability to Misty Step, how did they keep you, right? So that was one of the thoughts that I had. Maybe it was charm, maybe it was something else. Maybe there was, a something that limited your ability to do that, and you needed help being able to do it. I don't know.
And it's one of those things they don't really describe in like lore. It's like, when do you get these abilities? Like, is it at puberty? Is it at a certain age? Like,
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
I don't think a baby Misty stepping around is a thing, but
You've
a
seen The
baby is
Incredibles?
easy. That is a demon child. Literally, he burns on fire. But it's that concept of like it's easier to take because celestial bloodlines, infernal bloodlines, demonic bloodlines, they don't manifest until later on.
Right.
But when they manifest, you now have that blood activated almost.
Right.
So it could just be that all of the people taken were children. So it's more like you're gonna have to go for a hefty price, yeah. Um, but you're not gonna be able to escape. You don't have those abilities yet. They haven't
Right.
manifested. So it would make sense more like if I was taken as a child and learning how to tap into that innate magical essence of like that Fey ancestry and that bloodline is something that occurs when you're entering adulthood.
Mm-hmm.
And the same thing with like the incubus or the kalashar, like telepathic babies kind of freak me out if
Yeah,
you
it's a
think
little
about it.
creepy. I think it'd be interesting to see this kind of a develop in a young, like an older child, or like you said, like puberty level, like right before they're becoming an adult, where you are hell on hell for the, literally you're just causing hell for the slavers too. Can you imagine like going from, oh hey, everybody's captured, they've all got chains on, to why does he have wings, why does he have horns, and why is he over there? Like, like
Yeah,
what just
and how are they
happened?
all moving in a very coordinated manner
Well, they've been living together,
without
so
talking?
Yeah,
and it's
because
and
the
that's how
Kaleshtar
I
can talk back and forth to
that
everybody.
that's how I was picturing. It's more like,
Yeah,
what if all of us were children, and just for
yeah.
simplicity's sake, the first one to figure out they had an ability was the Kalashtar,
You just start talking to each other in this
Right.
head.
and started saying like, I think I'm more than just a human, because we wouldn't know what
Right,
we are.
especially at the age you are. Either way, you would look more like just a normal elf, but as you would start to,
Well, you can even flavor it differently. What type of Eladrin? Because you can go that where an Eladrin is just a fey wild elf, but then there's the seasonal Eladrins
that's what I was going to ask
where
you
you,
next: is which season were you? Which court did you grow
um
up in?
I think my character probably
Or would
would
the season come when
no
based on when you were?
I would almost say, like, wouldn't it be fun if the season changed based on the emotion I was feeling?
I think it'd be I think it'd be unique in a story sense. I think it'd be a hell to keep up with on
Yeah,
it.
it's more of like, if I'm angry and
Like,
hot-headed,
yeah,
not
summer.
ability-wise, like it becomes summer. If I get sad and gloomy,
Yeah,
it becomes winter. If I am joyful and alive and it's excited, it's spring. It's if I'm pensive and somber and just confused, autumn. And it's what if in this one-shot world the
hmm,
Eladrin are seasonal, but their seasonal appearance changes with their emotional like affinity, not just which court. Because you could make it that at one point all the like you can go from Seelie to Unseelie,
hmm,
Winter Eladrin, have children with Summer Eladrin. Their kids have
yeah.
are Summer and Winter, and what if they have an offspring with a Spring Eladrin? So what if in this world it's gone
You're
so
just
long
an
that it's
Eladrin.
an Eladrin and you don't have that physicality from just genetic, but from that emotion, especially because
Hmm.
a lot of things, emotion is what agitates your powers.
Right.
And like when you're angry, you look different. When you're
Yeah.
happy, you look different. So it's like, what if it was like that extreme with my emotions?
I think it'll be interesting mechanically for that because of the fact that when you change your season, you change mechanics. So when
I
you're
would say like
always
for
so
ease,
angry and stuff like that, like, but I think at that point I would just pick one for
I
ease
would
for
say that like
mechanics.
it's just a physical thing. It's a
Yeah,
cosmetic thing. Like,
yeah,
and that's what I'm saying. Like, you don't have to like overthink it.
right.
Like, oh, it'd be cool if I could change, but like, it'd be a bitch to figure out like which one's which, and
Yeah,
now I
like
have this,
I have
and
to
but
ask
I
you
haven't.
every time you want to use your your elven
Oh,
state.
I can
So
no,
what? How
I
do you
can't do this.
feel?
I can do. It's like, what emotional state are you in, and how is that manifesting? It's more like we're in a battle and someone dies. It's like, so you just see like the leaves wilt and wither, and I turn more of a pale blue.
Hmm.
Um, all my stuff is still the same, but it's more of like, what if I can't hide my emotions? Because hiding your emotions is not something who was raised to hide emotions. Like that's
Right.
something you're taught.
Mhm.
Yeah. If you're
What if
not
you were never
taught,
taught that?
you've already you're innately highly emotional just because of the innate abilities that you have. And just imagine that on top of the fact that you weren't taught how to control them and move shift them yourself. Ooh, be a
Yeah,
mess.
so I would say like normally probably green toned and stuff
Hmm.
because he doesn't see a lot of the stuff as evil. Like bears eat deer,
Yeah, it's
deers eat
normal.
berries. Yeah, it's like this is the cycle, but it's like, what if there was something that happened that did sadden him? It's like maybe he turns a little white and blue and he looks a little less leafy and stuff like that.
So we've really
But like
dove
mechanic wise, I think screw
into
that.
the the Eladrin, and we've dove into a lot of his morals, his core of his character. Corey, do you have? We're running. We're currently hitting about an hour and a half right now. So, do you have anything specifically you really want to target to
So
getting something for us to chew on while we're building this one shot?
no, I think we got it. I think I'm gonna go back to my question about like, okay, what how did you escape and that piece, right? And you work together with this group of others. Um, but I want to go to like, and maybe this is another vignette. Maybe I can put James on the spot now. When was that moment when you first misty stepped? Because you had been captured for most of your youth. So when was that moment that you first misty stepped, and what what kind of motivation was there to be somewhere else? Like, were you in a cage with somebody who scared you? What was that?
I think it'd be more of an emotional response, and maybe it's something known that out of a certain age I'd be able to do that. And so, like, what if the slavers are just, every couple of months provoking a fear response and seeing if, like, now it happens? It's
Hmm.
like, what if, like, they m use magic to create, like, such a fear response, or, like, a command ability to, like, use Misty Step or something? Because they would know what I'd be capable of. I wouldn't be, depending on how young I was taken. Um, and then not really being the smartest in realizing having a group of teenagers who really want freedom, who all have different abilities, kept next to each other, or be able to eventually see each other. Because even if we were kept in different areas, once the Kalashtar realizes they can communicate, they
Yeah.
can basically keep everyone party linked.
Right.
And we slowly figure out a plan, and we bide our time and wait until we realize everyone has an ability. Let's wait until everyone's manifest, because they seem to be able to just be able to want to prompt one at a time. I don't know if they can handle if we use all of them at the same time in a planned manner, and kind of go that route. Like, I think it'd be more of the there was a threat,
So how long
they
has
used
it
a
been?
magic.
How long was it from when you escaped to now?
I'm gonna say it's probably been about 10 years.
Okay.
I'll say like 10 to 15, like maybe we escaped like that 15 to 18 year round, like when puberty starts occurring and mostly finishes. Um, but like there's also like those mechanics of like, when do elves actually hit puberty? It's like
Well,
30 to
that I'm
50.
not
It's like
not
it's
worried
like
about
it's
that
like
crap.
it's like but it's like, what if like you gain these abilities after like different years because of lifespans, but like everyone's
Right.
basically the same age, like for simplicity's sake, and just going from there. And like, they thought we were stupid kids, but you know what? Like,
Right.
everyone's first instinct is self-preservation, and that coming together, like hellish rebuke, telepathy, misty step, the
So did you guys just
ASMR.
like kick off like the first ever encounter, the one moment, like you've got a group
Yeah, I
of
think.
8 bandits surrounding you, and the five of you are just like, "Hey, guess what? Let's launch!" And you release a counterattack
I would think it
to
would be
tear
almost
to it.
more. I think it'd be almost more like, in the night, like my character would kick it off because he'd be the easiest one to just escape. So he would have that choice of like,
Yeah,
I could just leave,
Yeah.
yeah,
but what if I wait to the night when most of them are asleep, and I set fire with a torch to half the camp? In the chaos, like with the Kalashtar and stuff like that, like,
yeah.
what if one of them could,
I just need the
like the incubus, I
keys.
think, gets charm person. It's like,
Yeah,
oh no, like leave, like don't leave, like you don't want to be in danger. And so someone with the keys is in the Incubus's tent, and they let
Yeah.
the Kalashtar know, and the Kalashtar tells me. So I steal a weapon, and I just like from behind, like,
Yeah. So I would say that's
okay,
probably so this is an interesting thought, right? So what is your emotion at that point? So cuz this is probably your first kill. This is probably you killing somebody for the first time.
yeah, I think it'd be more of um
I mean, coming from the back end, you throw the tent open. You the guy sitting on this thing. You can watch. He has this strange circlet that wraps around his head to make sure that
I
cause if he's working with these types of people all the time and
like
these types of
to try and protect him a
yeah,
bit against magic, but you just need one
one
good
good hit, and you knew
I-
this, and the Kalishtar was like, all you need to do is just distract him. Would you
like
have
I'll
taken
just
the
like
circlet, or would you have killed him,
no, I think my
or did you?
guy would have understood this is survival. This is not like I like they're not
Yeah.
educating us on morality.
No, no, they're not.
They're
No, that's what
they're
I'm
Right.
saying. So you
like
have
this
no
is the way of
morality
the
at this
world, and it's
point.
like this is the way of the world. So like okay, the way we get out is if I have these. You are not going to give these to me. I must take them. You will not freely do that. I have seen you kill other people
Hmm.
because if like people try to escape, you'll probably kill them, and you not shed any emotion toward it.
Right.
So to me, the taking of this guard's life would be almost emotionless. Like the emotion is more of like that stress, that anxiety of trying to escape, but not of like I don't understand like I took his life. Like it's
Right.
just a thing. Like I was taken from my family.
I
These
think
people were
this
taken from theirs.
almost, and I mean, we can't really do a vignette on this, but I think this almost would be your defining core moment when you accepted nature as what it is.
Yeah, like or like the reality of like the world. Like
Yeah.
things are as they are.
Or you
People choose
saw
to attribute stuff.
nature as this makes sense because this is what I had to do.
Yeah,
Not
it
not because if you went back to town, people have their own motives and things are good and evil, and you don't touch the guy who's smelly on the road, or you don't do this, and you were cast aside because you looked weird, that kind of thing. Where in this moment you were like, no, it's me or it. There
it's
has
a
to be a
survival
choice. I
instinct.
have to make this choice. I have no other option. I've never stabbed somebody, but I was given this dagger.
And if I don't use it, I'm going to die. And it's
Yeah.
so it's not like, oh no, I took a life. It's like it's a wolf versus a bear.
Right.
It's who gets the
The
killing blow
kill.
first is the one that walks away.
Yeah.
And I think that's why my character bonded so well with nature because it understood actions are actions. People are the ones that attribute of whether it was a just kill, a moral kill, or an immoral kill. Whereas my character saw it as it's just a kill. And if I don't do it, I will not survive. The same way a wolf or a bear hunts a deer. It's not evil. It's doing it to survive. It's doing it for food. So I think that's kind of why it's a defining moment without him knowing it's a defining moment. Like
Yeah.
it's kind of like what solidified his worldview
Right.
without knowing what a worldview even is
Yeah. I think
and why he
that's
attuned
really
so easily.
cool and very deep on a character level to have that moment where you didn't realize this is what shaped you. And I know a lot of
Yeah,
times you don't get those around the
shaping through
table.
trauma.
I mean, yeah, sadly,
What
but
developed you? Trauma.
trauma. I
I,
mean, but
yeah,
most
like
people can say that.
I make jokes with I used to make jokes with one of the therapists that I used to work with, and it was like when we would have like we'd vent to each other about our own stuff, and it was like, don't we love trauma bonding? And it's really like that concept of like that's why all of the five of us didn't go individualistic, and I dipped out when I could Misty Step.
Yeah.
because there was a bond of like where
Yeah.
a pack survives better than a wolf by itself concept.
Right.
And it's like I need to be someone who helps defend my pack because someone in my pack has been doing that with their telepathy, and that concept, like it's everything is just very neutral in its existence. It's neither good nor evil. There is no
Right.
morality. It's just the way it is. And so you then choose, do you follow the path that's in front of you or do you carve your own?
So I guess here's the challenge that I'm having. I mean I'm gonna be the second dungeon master in this. I'll probably end up just running NPCs and whatnot and letting James run the story arc. But the challenge I'm having here is I'm trying to figure out when and how Emery will become vulnerable. How what is that thing that because if there's kind of this true neutral, dispassionate, it is what it is. There's got to be something that can still break him. Something that can still make him vulnerable. Something that, if lost, he would feel loss.
I think what it would be is, and this is something that is different with a one shot versus a campaign. If it was the campaign, he wouldn't have one early on because he wouldn't have that
Right.
attachment. But if you do the one shot in the way that like he has been with these people, you get that internal conflict of like, this is my temporary family or like my chosen family as of now.
So you are going to be
What
very connected to any party that comes near you because you don't know you never grew up with a family.
I am completely detached until an attachment forms. It's like that's why I never, when as a child, as a young adult, left the forest with an adventuring party that's like, come with us to a town. It's like, no, like, why? It's like, because there's food and shelter. It's like, I have food and shelter here. Like, you are not offering anything more than I've already been given.
Yeah.
And so, like, if he joins a party for a specific goal and he's never been with them, he's not going to have that crisis of faith kind of a thing.
Right.
But if he's been with them for a while, kind of like with Ren, like if I don't know Ren and I know that Ren is going to disturb this balance, maybe I just kill Ren. But if
Right.
Ren, or like, what if Ren is just traveling through the forest? Maybe I intervene and I stop the bear. And I have that internal conflict of like, I have this connection to someone that I don't have to many people. Like, maybe this is when I start finding out who am I separate from nature. What if a bear is going after one of my party members? I don't want violence, but what if like speak with animals doesn't work? Like if I don't roll high enough and then I have to choose. And
Yeah.
it's like that shit conflict moment. Like, do I let the bear go? Do I let the bear just do it, or do I intervene? Do I hurt the bear? Maybe I try and go for like a non-killing blow, and I try to mediate between a bear and an adventuring party. If the bear was willing to walk away and starts, and someone goes and kills it anyway,
Yeah.
do I lose trust in my party?
So really, your driving fact for this one shot is going to be this weapon because otherwise you wouldn't even be getting involved
Yeah, so it's
because you
one
know
of
this
those
weapon
where
is a way to get you home.
so it's maybe one of those that like as much as I will protect nature as a whole, I can separate, or my character would try and separate one creature from the entirety of nature to protect my comrade.
Right.
But I need to ensure that like my ally understands you do not go hunting bears for gold, because then we're gonna have a problem. And it's being that like the conflict isn't of who can break me. It's more of like if my world view gets challenged. That what if this what if it's not like black and white? What if there is that gray area? Because I think up to this point he wouldn't have had that gray area.
Right.
But if my adventuring party, who I'm kind of friends with, dies, I lose my way of getting home. Does that mean I'm hurting myself? That goes against self-preservation. That goes against my own instincts.
Right. So you're
But my
fighting
instincts are
yourself.
exactly, it's like I need to protect this, but if I don't protect this, I'm not protecting myself. And it's that conflict with myself that's the problem, not with someone else. Because my worldview is life is just what it is. And it's kind of going that route. And it's like, what happens when you do have two options of equal weight? And it's
Right.
like that a philosophy thing of like, you'll always pick the one that's better. It's like, but what if they both are equal? You can't just sit there and watch. You have to make a choice because watching is a choice.
Right. Right. Well, this has
So
got a lot
I,
deeper.
I, I got one other question to help us
I
frame
like
this.
character building.
One other question to help us frame the one shot. Of the people you escaped with, who were you closest to? And you better bet you might see them.
Oh yeah.
I think the one I was closest to, there would be two.
Okay.
It would either be the Kalashtar,
Okay.
because they were our main source of communication, or as odd as it sounds, like the Incubus, because the Kalashtar, the Tiefling, and the Asimar all basically look like their non-planar touched essence until it's awakened. Whereas an Incubus and myself, from birth, we look different.
Right.
We don't look human. We look odd, and I feel like the Incubus and myself would bond because of the slaves. We are like, we don't even look like what everyone else. Like we would be the most confused. Like
Mm-hmm.
Kalashtar's, Tieflings, Asimars, their plane of existence, their home plane can be the material plane.
Right. Eladrin,
But
it's not.
incubuses
Incubus isn't. Yeah.
are not. We are from other planes. And so like I think we would be close because we would have bonded over the fact that like not only were we taken from our families, we were taken from our entire plane of existence. Like the trees, the flowers, the sky, everything we know, the
Mm-hmm.
way the ground feels, the nature itself, the flora and fauna inherently are alien to us on this plane.
Right.
So I think we would bond over that because the infernal plane and the Feywild are not like the material plane. The Feywild is a mirror image of it, but it vastly differs.
Yeah. No.
And so that we look different, we come from different planes, we would bond. And the Kalashtar, we would bond because that was our main
Source of
communication.
awesome.
So I think one of those two. I would say I'll send you the list of like the main slaver and like the four
Underlings.
escape slavies
Yeah.
and maybe like two underlings.
Yeah. No, that's fine. Yeah. The more information we have, the easier it's going to be for us to build the one shot and to weave the stories together. I think you were a great person to bring on first because you have a lot of knowledge already, and you love building characters. I think we're going to get this same enthusiasm that we got from you in their next couple. So just a heads up, we're going to have another one of our players on the show next week, and then the following week we will be off. We will not have a show the following week due to Gen Con, and then we'll pick up with our last two players after Gen Con. And then we're planning for this to be somewhere in October for the one shot. So tell your friends, spread it across social media and everything. This one shot is going to be awesome. I'm also looking at trying to make it so that maybe we'll run a charity one shot with this to, you know,
Oh,
hook
that'd
up
be
some
cool.
awesome charity if we
Yeah.
can get the publicity for it. So
Yeah.
I think that'd be
The
great.
and the other thing is we're hoping to plan this together, run this together. So if you haven't seen some code DMing, like basically, having two people doing the storytelling, splitting the load, and telling a story, it's a good chance to see how that goes.
yep, and we're gonna roll together on it and have a good time because I'm really excited to work with Corey. Corey and I have run games for each other, but we've never been able to run games with each other on this one. So it'll be an interesting change of pace. But we are closing in on our 2 hour mark. Thank you all for coming out and hanging out with us tonight. Thank you for coming to the tavern. Danny, it's always a blast. Come
Super fun.
come back, hang out with us next week. I haven't gotten our character yet for next week, but keep watching social media on that. And last but not least, any final notes? Otherwise, we will show you the
Yeah.
second part of our new thing, and then we'll go to
My only thing
close.
for people watching now or who watch it later is don't get hung up on knowing your entire backstory.
Yeah.
Maybe your backstory is you don't really have a deep one.
Yep.
And that's just as good because it lets you figure out who you are as you play.
Yep. And if not, go grab a buddy and just start talking it out because it's a very easy way to grow a backstory. But yeah, so come back, hang out with us again next week on our next Tavern Talks while we deep dive through either our Grung Ranger, our Human
The
Wizard,
backseat. Oh yeah,
or our
Longbone.
Tabaxi Rogue. So until then, here we are. Come join us on Sunday as I launch our new outro.